Scoring and colors play an important role in spider impact. In the new alerts section, I immediately see the impact of colors. The first alert shown is highlighting a red value for the total gross profit measure for the month of September. If I click on it to investigate, I get down to a detailed view where I can see coloring being displayed in many areas. In the measure and threshold value section, I see a red colored circle and normalized score for the month of September. In the speedometer in the top left, I see it is in the red. Right above that, I see a red colored rectangle illustrating that the actual value of 100,000 is down 145,000 from the prior month. This must mean that if I toggle back to August, the actual should be 245,000. And it is. So I'll return to September. In the chart in the top right, I see a red colored circle for the month of September. I see that September is the only month within the entire last year that is operating in the red. Every other month is in yellow or green. If I look at the Measures tab, I see there is a red alert because the month's actual is in the red. If I toggle back to August, the alert goes away. I'll toggle back to September and click on the Measures tab. I see there are color indicators in the top left corner of every month. If I hover over the name or any one of the numbers, the entire row is highlighted in that particular color, making it stand out even more. Now return to the Overview tab. In the secondary navigation pane on the left, I see colors appearing throughout the Scorecard hierarchy. Without having to click on a different item, I can see that the top level is in yellow for the month, while the financial perspective is in red. I can see that the increased revenue objective is in yellow. And if I expand it, I can see why. One of its measures is in the green, one is in yellow, and one is in red. I'll collapse that objective again and focus in on total gross profit. Because that measure is active on screen, I'm seeing a red color visual in two places, to the left of the measure name and to the right. If I select a different item, like increased profit, I see that the item now has two colors, while the red to the left of total gross profit has turned gray since it's no longer active on screen. Next, I like to return to the home page and see the impact of coloring in other areas of the product. If I click on My Measures, I'll see, just for the measures I am owner for, a colorized view of performance for September on the left. At the top, there are green, yellow, and red filters that allow me to focus in on a particular area. If I click on red, I'll see just those measures. If I click again, I'll return to all measures. Next, I'll select Update Measures to see the measures I'm responsible for updating. My measures have been updated in the top left of the period column. I can see a color indicator showing my performance for that month. If I hover over the measure or the period, the coloring expands to the entire cell. Next, I'll select My Tasks. Just like with measures, I have color indicators for each task on the left, and at the top I have colored filters, where I can focus in on maybe just my red tasks by clicking on it, and then clicking again to show all tasks. I'll go back to the Welcome page, and now review the impact of coloring in our presentation section. Briefings, strategy maps, dashboards, reports, and charts. To do this all at one time, I'll select Briefings. I see an existing briefing named Monthly Management Meeting, which contains a collection of all these objects. On the first page of the briefing is the sales pipeline dashboard. I can quickly see that 3 of my measures are performing poorly, while new trials is performing well. If I skip to page 5 of the briefing, I can see the color impact in the sales report. Thanks to color, I get a quick handle on which one of the measures I need to focus on. New customers has 5 months in a row that are in red and of concern. Okay, with that, I'd like to take a step all the way back and discuss the concept of normalized scoring in Spider Impact. To help illustrate this, I'm going to select scorecards. I'll expand examples and scoring types. I'll then select the goal red flag measure here. Measures and their associated normalized scores are the foundation of how performance is tracked and presented. Spider Impact assigns a normalized score between 0 and 10 based on a measure's actual value, thresholds, and scoring type. Spider Impact provides 11 default scoring types, allowing for many options for associating actual performance with normalized scores. I'll select Edit. And if I scroll up and down on scoring type, I'll see each of the options. I'll then select Done. I put together an example of each one of those scoring types, and I'll highlight some of the key differences. I'll start with the most popular one, goal red flag. If I set the red flag value to 500 and have an actual of 500, I know that will be the point it turns red and have a score of 3.33. Conversely, if I have a goal of 800 and have an actual of 800, that'll be the point it turns green and have a score of 6.67. To determine the points at which 0 and 10 are hit, Spider Impact calculates the difference between the red flag and goal, which in this case is 300, and then subtracts or adds that value to determine the endpoints. For instance, if I have an actual of 200, which is 300 less than the red flag value, that is the point it hits 0, effectively the worst value. Conversely, if I have an actual of 1100, which is 300 more than the goal, that is the point it hits 10, effectively the best value. Moving on to 3-color scoring. This option provides more control over defining the best and worst values. Instead of having best and worst auto-assigned, I can set whatever I want for them. In this case, maybe 0 and 1500. For example, if I had an actual of 200, whereas the score was 0 in the goal red flag model, it now has a score of 1.33. Only at an actual of 0 will I have a score of 0. Moving on to goal only scoring. This option requires only that a goal value be set and a determination if higher values are better. And I'll click Edit to show that option. If that is set to yes, and I'm at the goal or above, I'll be in the green with a score of 10. I'll click Done. For example, if I have a goal of 800 with an actual of 800, I'm in green at a score of 10. If I change the value to 795, I'm in red and at 0. Moving on to yes/no scoring. This option is very similar to goal only but does not require a goal. I also need to make the determination if yes is good or not. If it is set to yes and the actual is no, I'll be in the red and have a score of 0. If the actual is yes, I'll be in the green with a score of 10. Moving on to 2-color scoring. This option allows for the setting of best and worst values along with the goal. There is no red flag. Anything at or above the goal is in green, while anything below the goal is red. There is no yellow. Moving on to 4-color blue. This option requires 5 threshold points: worst, red, goal, reach out, and best. A value at each of the threshold points will generate scores of 0, 2.5, 5, 7.5, and 10 respectively. For example, an actual of 1200 that equals the reach out will be in blue with a score of 7.5. Moving on to 4-color orange. This option is very similar to 4-color blue, except the reach out point is replaced with the warning point. For example, an actual that is equal to warning is in orange at a score of 5. Moving on to 4-color scored middle. This option requires 3 thresholds, a red, yellow, and gold. Colors range from red to yellow to green to dark green. Moving on to 2-color stabilize. This option requires 5 thresholds: low worst, low target, best, high target, and high worst. In this model, scores go from red to green and then back to red. Moving on to 3-color stabilize. This option requires 7 thresholds from low worst to high worst. Low red flag and high red flag are 2 additional items required. In this model, scores go from red to yellow to green, and then back to yellow and red. Lastly, in the unscored option, this option requires no thresholds. Its purpose is simply for tracking. For example, a total revenue measure that allows the summing of all of our revenue measures and have that visible in one location. However, it has no impact on colorized scoring whatsoever. Spider Impact has a scoring types page which allows administrators to configure which scoring types are available. On a second browser tab, I'll select Administration in the bottom left, and then select Scoring Types under Configuration. Scoring types can be reordered via drag and drop. I'll move 3-color stabilize up one, and then I'll just put it back. If there's a scoring type that is not used, I can click the trash can icon and then delete. Note that the scoring type cannot be tied to any measures. For instance, if I tried that with 3-color stabilize and click delete, I would get this error. I'll then click close. I can also add an option by clicking add scoring type in the top right. Under standard, I can add one of the options Spider Impact has available. For instance, if I had removed 3-color stabilized, I could re-add it from standard. However, now I get a message that all the standard scoring types have already been added, so I can only work with custom. I can add custom scoring types to match any unconventional colors or thresholds that an organization may have. For instance, if my company would like a 3-color blue option, I'll give it that name and select number as the measure value type. At the bottom, I'll select add threshold, and I'll move that new item above the one tied to the score of 10. I'll set the score ranges to 0, 4, 7, and 10. And note that the 0 and 10 boundaries cannot be changed here. They are driven by the ranges that are set in application administration. I'll change the second name to red flag, and I'll change the third name to goal, and importantly, tick the goal box next to the item that I'm naming goal. As far as colors, I'll change the last one to blue. And click add. I'll then go to my other browser tab and click refresh to accept the change. I'll select the scoring types objective, select new scorecard item, and I'll give it a name of 3-color blue. Under scoring type at the bottom, I now have the 3-color blue option. I'll go ahead and select that. Under fields, I'll type 1, 2, 3, and 4 for the values. I'll then click create and select done. I'll select the new measure. I'll update it with a value of 4 and click save. I'll see that it is now in the blue. I'll go back to my other tab and show another scoring type that can be added. I'll select Add Scoring Type, give it a name of unscored text, and select that under Measure Value Type. Under Measure Values, I'll type Failed for the first text value and then Succeeded for the second. I could enter more entries, but for now I'll just go ahead and select Add. While I'm here, I'll add one more scoring type. I'll select Add Scoring Type in the top right. This time give it a name of Scored Text and select that option. I'll type Failed once again, but this time it's next to red, and then type Succeeded and note that it's next to green. With that, I'll go ahead and select Add. I'll then go to my other browser and click Refresh. Now we'll pick up the new scoring type changes. I'll select the scoring type's objective and click New Scorecard Item. We'll give it a name of Unscored Text. I'll select that scoring type from the drop-down and click Create. I'll then create one more measure named Scored Text. Select that item from the drop-down and click Create. At that point, I'll select Done. I'll now select the unscored text measure, update it with the value of failed, and click Save. I see the word, but no score is provided. I'll now select the scored text measure, again update it with failed, again see the word, but this time I get a score in red with a value of 0. The next item I'd like to review is how scores are rolled up a scorecard hierarchy. Once measures have been scored, parent objects like objectives and perspectives get their score via a weighted average of the scores of the objects directly beneath them. I'll minimize scoring types and select normalized scoring. By default, Spider Impact assigns an equal weight to each measure. If I had just these two measures and the score for total gross profit was 0 and the score for employee satisfaction was 10, it sums those two up, divides by 2, and produces a score of 5 in yellow for the parent. However, the weight can be customized. To show that, I'll click on Total Gross Profit, select Edit, and I'll then click on the weight. I'll change Total Gross Profit measure weight to 3 and click Save and then Done. If I click on the parent, I now see that it is also in red with a score that has dropped from 5 to 2.5. The treatment of nulls also plays a big impact on the color. I'll minimize normalized scoring and select Tree Rollup. I see that total gross profit is in yellow and employee satisfaction is gray because a measure value has yet to be provided. Although each measure was assigned an equal weight of 50, if only one has an actual, the null measure will display a weight of 0. I'm also provided with a tooltip explaining why. If I go back to August, when both measures had an actual, I'll see the equal weight of 50. I'll now switch back to September. Next, I'll minimize Tree Rollup. I'll expand Time Aggregation and select KPI 1. In the top right, I'll switch to Quarterly. And see that a score of 5.83 displays in yellow for the quarter, even though only July and August were populated with values. I'll switch back to monthly. That behavior can be changed. I'll go ahead and select my other tab and select Application Administration. Towards the bottom of the scoring section, there is an Ignore Periods Without Values for Time Aggregation option, which can be switched to No. If that was set, the normalized score and color for the KPI I was just reviewing would disappear until the September value was loaded. Right above that is an option to ignore gray scorecard items for tree rollup. That was switched to no. The tree rollup objective in the example from earlier would switch from yellow to gray and would remain that way until all the measures it contained were populated. At the top of the scoring section, there are several configuration options that allow for customizing the types of scores that can be assigned to scorecard items. By default, scores are 0 to 10, but they can be changed to any minimum and maximum value. I'll go to my other tab, expand Custom Scoring, select KPI 1, and see this measure has a score of 10. I'll go back to my other tab, select Maximum Score, and switch it from 10 to 5. I'll then click Save. I'll get a note that this will recalculate scores in the entire system. If this was a good time for me to do that, I would then click Recalculate. I'll go back to my other tab and click Refresh to show the impact of the change. The score has now changed from 10 to my new maximum score of 5. Spider Impact can also show scores as a percentage. I'll go back to my other tab, switch Show Scores As to Percentage, and click Save. I'll click to recalculate, go to my other tab, and hit Refresh. The score now shows as 100% as opposed to 5. One more time, I'll go back to my other tab and note that scores can be set to extend below 0 and above 10, or below 0 and 100% if we use percentage. I'll switch back to number, and I'll say yes to allow scores to extend above 10 and click Save. I'll click the Recalculate option, go back to my other tab, and hit Refresh. Since I'm at the exact point the score hits 10, I see no impact. However, if I click Update, change the value to 120, and click Save, I now see a score that extends beyond 10 at 13.33.